Hey, everybody. This is Joshua Littrell. Thank you so much for joining us here today on the Veterans for Cannabis podcast. I am joined by Russ BURIE. Russ, how are you doing today?
Quite well, thank you.
Awesome, Russ. So, for our listeners, help them understand where you're at geographically located in the country today.
I'm in St. Lucie, Florida. That would be on the East Coast-ish. There's the intercoastal waterway that separates St. Lucie from the Atlantic Ocean.
Well, so are you from there originally, Russ?
No, but I like to visit when there's, snow, cold weather, ice, So no, I'm originally from Upper Michigan,
Okay.
and then I moved over to Door County, Wisconsin, and I've been growing hemp there for the past couple of years. And
Awesome.
I moderate the Wisconsin Hemp Farmers page.
That is so awesome, brother. I can't say thank you enough for that. And you just happen to be another veteran as well. Is that correct?
It's a true story.
Yeah, I love it. Navy Seabee, is that right?
Yep.
So for our listeners, Russ, help them understand what a Navy Seabee is, if you don't mind.
Well, the CB stands for Construction Battalion, but then Walt Disney personified the Seabees as a cartoonish type little bee that was known for construction and then defending whatever was constructed, like a swarm of bees.
Absolutely. And it's so funny because when I was deployed in 2003, I'm a bioenvironmental engineer. I'm an Air Force guy, and we were called the Bees. So everybody got us and our squadron confused with you guys as the Navy Seabees because our bee was up there too. It was comical, man. And I really appreciate you and what you've done. But first and foremost, man, being a Navy Seabee is awesome. You guys really put some stuff up, and you can tear some stuff down.
Yeah, true story. I mean, that's what the CB motto "Can Do" is all about.
So, you're in the hemp industry now. How in the world did you go from being a CB, really an engineer essentially, to being now in the hemp industry? How did you fall into that?
Well, the way I look at things, everything's a manufacturing process. On top of being a CB, the CBs, they perform different specific functions, and my specific function in the CBs was as a utilities man. And, people would joke around, call the plumbers turd chasers, and, brown trout didn't necessarily mean brown trout.
Right.
But, we dealt with people's stuff. And I also dealt with sourcing wells and then, potable, non-potable water distribution systems, gray water, black water treatment, heating, ventilation, air conditioning, refrigeration. And then there's, security, running convoys, doing communication.
Absolutely.
And then building, of course. So, yeah, lots of good times.
That is so true. And the great thing is when you're a jack of all trades, you can do a whole lot of different things, and that's what makes us so wonderful when we talk about the hemp industry and being able to do that, because we can just kind of, assimilate into any new industry, right? So you're growing in Wisconsin, and is this your first year, your second year?
Well, I don't know how I feel about re-upping for my license this year in 2020.
Okay.
Yeah. So I grew for 2018, 2019. And I'm waiting for the 2019 season to pan out. I know, I got a little over a month and a half to figure it out,
right?
Whether or not I want to play ball, because I do see the Wisconsin landscape for cannabis, whether it be hemp or marijuana, changing in the relative near future. And I want to be, prepared for that change.
So, Russ, when you talk about a little change, what do you anticipate happening? Because we oftentimes talk about what is the market going to do. And I think this is a great segue into what do you think is going to happen?
Well, the government is trying to be helpful. And, maybe not, entirely for the benefit of the farmer.
Okay.
You know, if the crop fails, the crop fails. The government has no liability there. If the state government is to issue a contradictory law to federal law, the state government claims indemnity. So it's like, hey, you know, you might be having a problem, but your problem's your problem, and it ain't my problem. So I think, you know, it would be nice to have government support. You know, the Hemp for Victory program in the 1940s was put in place for a reason. And as a country that's more or less in a perpetual state of war, I don't see any reason why the federal government would hold back changing the consumer market into something that can be sourced of the land, much like Henry Ford had envisioned for his vehicles. Like 100 years ago. Right?
I think you're exactly right. You're exactly right. You know, I don't know if you saw yesterday or not, but it looks like Wisconsin's one of the states that's going to be included in the first year pilot crop insurance program. So that's federal. That's USDA that's actually going to put that out. Have you heard anything about that yet?
I know Don Pierce handles some of that for farmers right now. You know, not to be a name dropper, but
sure.
He's the only guy that I know handling the insurance. But he was handling it before that was even really talked about. I think, you know, as far as what you're referencing.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. It could be, you know, it could be good. We'll see. It's going to be one of those where 5 acres is the minimum. I think 20 acres for grain and fiber. So, you know, they got some fairly high minimums because we tell people that are interested, especially in the veteran community, you know, our brothers and sisters, if they're interested in getting into the industry, we want to try to tell them to, you know, start low, go slow, the same way with any usage, right? But we try to say, hey, look, start with an acre, work up from there. But this is a 5 acre minimum on this insurance program.
Sure. But I wonder if, you know, under a license, you could max out the acreage like in Wisconsin. You can have fields at different locations.
Mm-hmm.
And like last year, I had almost a total of 10 acres grown. Some was at my location, and then I had several other fields that another farmer was tending under my license as an operational manager.
Nice, very nice. So Russ, on that farm or those different locales, how many genetics were you growing? Were you growing the same lineage? Were you trying to, you know, branch that out and try to change the genetics with it?
For myself, I just grew from seed from you know, the past year because I'm trying to get a strain that's acclimated specifically to my climate. And I feel that, you know, my F4 generation will be pretty good. But yeah, there's improvements to be made. The other farmer, he went and tried to do feminized. Of course, there was some males there.
Sure.
Wasn't such a big deal. He had people working his fields for him. But there's always that danger. But is it really that dangerous to have a few seeds? I don't think so. I think
I will answer that for you. How's that sound?
Sure.
So
please.
Last year, I don't know if you know or not, but our first farm was in Wisconsin, and the first year we actually bought clones from somebody. Unfortunately, that person was cloning off both males and females. So we got about 60% males, and we couldn't stay in front of it. So every single one of ours got germinated, and we had nothing but seeds this year out of our production. But, you know, it doesn't hurt that we got seeds. It just hurts that our plan was to produce product out of that. So it changes.
Yeah, absolutely. But make the best of it, right?
Absolutely, 100%, bro. You know that you served, and that's what we do. We make lemonade with lemons. That's exactly. We squeeze it. Let's get the best out of what we got. That's what it's about.
Sure,
100%. So you have a sustainable agricultural background. Is that what you practice with your hemp farms?
Yeah, I mean, I source my inputs locally, just like a couple miles down the road. Just had a farmer that gives me all the horse poo I can handle.
Awesome.
And I know people are on the fence, about using horse manure, whatever. Darned if you do, darned if you don't.
So that's
I
something
think,
interesting. I've not heard anybody be on the fence about that. So can you expand on that a little bit for our listeners?
I believe the horses, having their nimble grazing lips, they essentially lick the landscape clean like a goat browsers. So they're licking up parasites, and then the parasites get on them, and then the horses get anemic, whatever. So people give them doses of ivermectin. The veterinarians prescribe it, and just about every horse out there that's not roaming wild is on this ivermectin, and that's the only real concern that I've heard about horse manure inputs. But really, I think if on a smaller scale, people could, collectively grow underneath a license and source, local inputs as opposed to having Amazon deliver things from halfway around the world.
Right.
I think it would put, our local economies in a better position. And I know a lot of this is going corporate, but if people are really supposed to have a relationship with the plant, they should be growing it on a more local level.
100%.
I think
100%.
It's part of our heritage. I had a shipment over 30 pounds seized last year. Well,
no way.
Yeah, it was 2018. Yeah, a Chicago narcotics detective. He had been working for 14 years, and he never heard about the correlation of canvas and cannabis.
Wow.
And out of his 14 years working, he said, I was one of 2 people that ever called to get their stuff back. And I spelled out. Hey,
that's awesome.
I spelled it all out for him. He didn't have to do any thinking, really.
All right, so
just look at that information. Oh, of course.
Oh, I'm so proud of you, Russ. That is awesome, brother. But the question is, did you have to drive and go get it, or did he actually ship it out to you? What was that process like?
No, he did not ship it back to me. He shipped it on to the processor that I had it going to for seed.
Okay.
As I requested.
Wow. That is so awesome.
And the Chicago PD paid for it.
That's even better.
They should have paid me for my time, because they were violating my right to due process. Because I said I'm shipping this stuff to my processor to get the seeds out. And I said, as far as I'm concerned, you owe me an immediate inventory for my seized property. And I want you to get your bean counters out. And I want you to count out every single seed, because that's what I had it being sent out for.
Wow. Nice.
And he's like, are you serious? And I said, you're darn right I'm serious. He said, get on it. You're a public servant. What are you doing to preserve my rights today?
I love it.
Right? Well, come on, man. I mean,
love it.
You've seen stuff go down plenty of times. It's like, enough's enough there, Chuckles. You get them on the straight and narrow. I mean, shit. You want to enforce the law, enforce the law.
That's right.
And do it in
100%.
an expedient fashion. Don't be dragging your feet and tripping other people up.
Yeah, and it's frustrating right now because the country doesn't really know where it's at, because we've got some Barney Fife sheriffs and local law enforcement that are completely against it and they want to seize everything. And then we've got some that are like, absolutely, let's lift it up and help them.
Then they're infringing on interstate commerce. But that's also a similar way I feel about the arbitrary fees. You can only tax so many zeros behind another digit before it becomes just an arbitrary number. And it happens all the time,
Yeah.
And I believe that the U.S. economy is, it's a fiat currency. Hey, the petrodollar tanks, we're no longer AAA, we're AA. I still got AAA, in case they break down or whatever. And you can get discounts at Hertz Car Rental like I did today.
Right.
But
that's right. Exactly.
We're slip sliding away, brother. You know, we
It
got
happens.
PFAS rain. We got PFAS rain. What the hell's PFAS rain? I don't want to know.